Today's webinar is part of Alzheimer's Awareness Month, which is recognized across the country each January. With more than 85,000 people living with dementia in BC, it is important to have conversations about dementia and give a voice to people living with the disease. Following today's webinar, I encourage each of you to visit the Alzheimer's Society of BC's website and read the inspiring stories from our amazing spokespeople who welcomed us into their homes and communities to share with us a little piece of their journey. Visit alsbc.org/AAM2025 to see the beautiful images we captured from across BC and the Yukon and learn more about this year's Alzheimer's Awareness Month campaign. Today, our guest speakers will talk about their unique journeys with dementia and discuss the supports that have been helpful on their journeys. Our moderator and panelists today are lived experience partners who are living with dementia. Our moderator for today's discussion is Fred Keating. From Maple Ridge, BC, Fred has been living with dementia for several years. He has worked in media as a writer, has volunteered as part of the Maple Ridge Historical Society and various media-oriented organizations, and is also an affiliate member of the local Royal Canadian Legion. Fred is also a prolific actor with long-running roles in shows like Jake and the Kid, Da Vinci's Inquest, and Da Vinci's City Hall, as well as appearing in other well-known productions like Supernatural, The X-Files, Final Destination, Air Bud, and quite a number of Hallmark movies. He is currently navigating the new normal of dealing with a dementia diagnosis, in part by becoming involved with the Society's Lived Experience Partner Program as a panelist, Awareness Month spokesperson, and today as the moderator of this conversation. Thank you, Fred, for being a part of this event. I will pass things over to you to start the conversation.
Thanks very much, Cassandra. I certainly appreciate being here and being part of the event. In terms of my own story, I appreciate being able to come aboard with the team at the Alzheimer's Society of BC. And I want to welcome everyone who's tuning in or viewing and who have joined us today. And of course, our lived experience partners on the panel, who you will meet shortly. Certainly in terms of my own story, dementia has had an impact on my life, and not for the first time. I spent 17 years of, the last 17 years of my mother's life by watching and caring when I could for her through her decline and learning more about the disease, not knowing that what I learned would suddenly become of great use some years later. But in fact, my journey was different from hers because I've had the benefits of the education and support of the Alzheimer's Society of BC, which you may or may not know, such partner societies exist right across the country. Every province and territory, as well as a national office in Ottawa, produce the sort of parallel packages of material, educational support information. And although to my knowledge, it's only the Society in BC and Yukon which have this particular program that we are participants in, the Lived Experience Partnership Program. So that's where me and folks like our panelists can chat with each other and, in fact, share what we have in common, trade tips and all sorts of suggestions to get on this particular road, so to speak. Now, before I introduce the today's guest speakers, I want to ask all of you who are watching us from all over one simple question. I want to ask whoever you are, wherever you are, what is your greatest source of support? Whether you're a patient, a caregiver, a family member, a friend, a relative, if you're comfortable sharing that with us, what your greatest source of support is, I think please put your response into our chat box. we'd love to hear what has been most helpful for you if you are navigating the dementia journey or not. Whether, as I said, you are a partner, a supporter, or a patient. So, without further ado, it's my pleasure to introduce our panelists today. Let me start with Arabella. Now, Arabella is a lifelong learner. She has 2 master's degrees, an MA in speech from the University of Hawaii and MA in social psychology from Ateneo University in the Philippines. She was manager of training at Bell Canada in Toronto for over 10 years before she and her husband started their own business in terms of international speaking and training. Arabella was diagnosed with MCI, that stands for mild cognitive impairment. That's my own personal brand as well. And soon after her husband died in 2015. Now Arabella is in part-time retirement, very active in her community with 3 clubs, the Comox Valley Head Injury Society, Alzheimer Society of BC, and Toastmasters International. So she's in good company. She's a world traveler, an ardent researcher and gardener, a joyful dragon boater, a nature lover with a few deep friendships and beloved family far away. Arabella celebrates her life in beautiful Comox Valley on Vancouver Island, which she calls her Eden. So welcome her, please. Thank you so much. Now I want to introduce you to Brian. Brian calls Prince George, BC home after a varied and rewarding 35-year career working with individuals living with developmental delays and mental health issues. He left work at the age of 56 after being diagnosed with young onset Alzheimer's. Brian decided to continue living life to the fullest by embarking on a series of athletic challenges. He competed in the 2023 U.S. Open Wrestling Championship in Las Vegas, a lifelong dream of his. He also played slow pitch with his son, raced in a number of 5K runs, participated and completed a triathlon in as recently as July of 2024. And he's become involved with the lacrosse team that he played for over 20 years and worked with as a coach. In May of 2024, with his partner Penny by his side, offering constant support, Brian completed the marathon distance, that would be 42K, on an elliptical machine, and together they raised $7,000 for the IG Wealth Management Walk for Alzheimer's. He also gardens with Penny and volunteers and writes and draws in his spare time, though it really doesn't sound like there's much spare time according to what he's been doing. And yet I'm sure if any arrives, he'll take care of it right away. So Brian, thanks so much for being with us today.
Thank you, Fred. And I didn't even add 2 grandkids and 4 children, so that takes up more of that time.
I'd love to see that photo album.
Thank you.
Then there's Dawn. Dawn lives in Whitehorse, Yukon, a former lecturer and engineer whose work with the BBC television earned him the recognition as one of the, quote, 100 voices that made the BBC. Don had an adventurous and fulfilling career. He felt a significant loss when he started to notice that there were some cognitive and behavioral changes after he had made quite a successful living in teaching and consulting and lecturing. For Don and many others of us living with Alzheimer's or dementia, there are good days and bad days, basically. And Don finds joy in being a sous chef and the feel of warm water on his hands while he washes the dishes, while his wife is the main chef and, of course, checks his work. He's also working to capture his family history and adventures in a printable format before they are somehow lost. He can still delve into the art of storytelling, and I've benefited from that with him, narrating adventures that his family has encountered working around the globe from Zambia to Estonia to Korea, just to mention a few of the countries. And his son also lives in the Yukon and plays a pivotal role in offering care and support to Dawn. So, Dawn, thanks very much for being with us today. Appreciate it. Well, The organizers have 3 questions for each of our panelists, and we're going to get right to them. And the first question has to do with navigating the journey. And I'm going to start with Brian because Arabella, I believe, is still on her way. So, Brian, if you're ready,
Yep.
the first question has to do with navigating the dementia journey. Every person living with dementia is unique. Although there are commonalities, everyone's path is different. What were some of the initial challenges that you faced after being diagnosed with dementia, and how have you navigated them?
Well, as I've said before, Don, Fred, rather, the word navigated to me is incorrect. I'm still navigating. It's hasn't been that, but I think the biggest single issue and challenge that I find is the sense of loss that this diagnosis has um, put in my lap and my family's lap. And that's just like an overriding sense of loss. As you stated, I lost my job. Well, I left my job because of the diagnosis, and it was something I loved to do. It gave me my status in the community. It gave me. I was coaching wrestling in the school I was working at. Gave me a lot of joy, and I had to leave it, and I left it at a proper time. So again, that my loss of identity and role. I'm no longer the dependable guy that I used to be. That's what I feel. I am always told, no, that's not true. It's just different now. But you still have that sense that something's been ripped from you and part of your self-worth. Uh, and most recently, I gave up my driver's license, which again ties all into that sense of loss and independence. And I think the biggest one is the loss of the future that Penny and I had planned. We had a not we had a fairly clear idea where we were going, and this diagnosis has set it on its ear, as they say, and that's all. And having to make those decisions on the fly and changing up how we see ourselves. That's the biggest challenge because we get tons of support from friends, the Alzheimer's Society, other family members, but I think singularly that prolonged sense of grieving, that's the biggest challenge that we're always struggling with on a daily basis. We don't wallow in it, but it's still, oh man, this never used to be like this. So we battle through, and we're going to continue battling through. Um, but it's hard, and I think most people in our situation, like you said, there's a lot of commonalities and there's a lot of differences, but I think that's one commonality is that it's not easy, and yeah, the key is to keep going forward, I think.
Well said. Don, I'm going to intrude on your meditation right now and ask you exactly the same question. Can you tell us a little bit about the challenges that you faced after diagnosis and how to refer back to Brian, how you are navigating them?
Certainly, and thank you for asking. Around 2 years ago, I realized and test confirmed that I did have a problem and it was getting worse. I fought the idea. No, I don't. I lost. I started learning all I could about the problem, admitting that I had it. And I learned about things like socializing, increasing that, diet that would help myself, in my case, less beef and more greens, more beans, and things like exercise. I'm overweight, so that's always a challenge when you have arthritis as well, but I do go to exercise, in fact, and enjoy it. And I learned about the types of dementia and nobody's too sure about it, but mine is at least early. And I learned about the importance of a support system because I was, I guess, a rather independent person, and now I have to consider home care even. So one of the things that bothered me is I immediately lost all confidence in my own speaking out, as I found that I didn't always tell the truth. I made words that were total garbage at times. And rather than be a speaker on all things, as I kind of thought I was, I shrunk back into being a homebody, and I became unnaturally quiet and avoided people in general because I also, at the same time as this, my hearing went, and I say hearing, but I do not understand words that are spoken very well at all. So that forced me to stay home most of the time and shrink away from people. So that was a problem. I played a lot of Scrabble against the computer, not people. And I tried to solve all kinds of math and science puzzles that appear on the web as well to exercise my brain. Now, whether it helped or not, I at least tried it. So I, when this happened, I started a weekly Zoom group of men like myself, going up into the age of 80s and 90s. And to my surprise, that was very, very well received. And I get somewhere between 6 and 19 men out once a week on Zoom, and we just do roughly what we're doing here. We're chatting about our problems, helping each other. They live all the way across Canada and have a real variety of occupations, from being a dentist who's 94 to retired people, and a real assortment of people. But we all help each other because we seem to find some commonality. One of the problems I have, and I'm still struggling with this problem, various organizations, because they did hear me speak on CBC1 about my new dementia, said, "Oh, we'd like you to be our guest speaker." And I really struggled with that because was it this constructive or just something that's different? And hence I was a curiosity, and I actually turned many of them down, rightly or wrongly, but I'm still struggling with that because I'm not sure if putting myself out in public to be seen, and as I get frailer, is it helping to minimize dementia stigma or comfort others? And to me, the journey is still out on that. I'm not sure. I'm told that it is, but my own mind doesn't necessarily see that. I miss the people that I used to meet because I'm, as I say, staying home and not meeting anybody, and that's not healthy at all. And I can't say that's a defense mechanism. That's a total failure. But I really do lack the mental or physical energy to start anything new. So I was very active, and I kind of never could imagine how I could sit for hours and quote, do nothing. Well, I still don't understand it, but I do it very well. So that's really what I think about. And I try not to be bitter about things lost, but they're certainly there. And I try to be happy and thankful for what I still have. And we don't really get a chance to practice run on this thing called life, so I'm trying not to waste it. That's my thought for this part of the meeting.
Thank you, sir. Much appreciated. This common thread of loss, I think, is something that many of us can identify with. You both mentioned it. In one of my early sessions with other folks who had the disease, and a really critical part of for the society as well is to monitor the acceptance of folks who have been diagnosed. And in one of these early sessions, the instructor put up on a slide the old Kubler-Ross 5 steps in terms of towards death, the stages, 5 stages you go through, denial, anger, so on and so forth, and then finally acceptance. And I must say, I don't, contrary to your belief, I don't talk a lot in those sessions, but I did stick my hand up and say to the instructor, there's one aspect up there that is missing. And she said, well, now what would that be? And I said, guilt. And she said, what do you have to be guilty about? I said, I have tried to be a supportive and a good dad, a good husband. I tried to allow people to rely on me for certain things and responsibilities. And the guilt of not being that guy with those skill sets, but it was a radical change for me in terms of loss. As for the other folks in my family, they seemed to remain the same in time. I was the one that seemed to be guilty about what I had caught, if you will, and that still haunts me. But thank goodness Arabella is here to straighten us out. Hello, Arabella.
I've been trying for the last half hour to get in. So finally got it.
Okay, well, we are very glad to see you.
Thank you. I'm so happy to.
You're just in time to answer the same question that I've asked the other two gentlemen, and that simply is, we want to know, once you catch your breath, we want to know from your perspective what kinds of challenges that you've faced since your diagnosis, and how you're coping with them or navigating them, as Brian says.
You see, my father had early onset dementia in his 50s. And I saw this brilliant, dynamic man sort of disappear from his personality, from his identity. And the fact that he is now nothing like he used to be, it sent shivers to my brain and my heart, and it was very, very painful to see. So when he died 7 years after the diagnosis, so when I got diagnosed with cognitive impairment, I thought of my father, especially because at that time when I first saw him, I was a young adult, and I said, "Oh, please, universe,
Tom Heather.
please do not let me go through this. Please take me out in my prime," which I thought was 35 years old. And I said, I cannot bear what I'm seeing. And I'm so, so scared that mine will even be worse. And so it was very difficult, especially at the start. Now, when I had a stroke and was shown to have cognitive impairment, I seriously doubted, is life worth living? What is there for me? And even if I were alive, would this be enough for me? And to me, that was a very, very dark night of the soul, dark times of the soul, because there were many nights that I felt that way. And so when later on I'd wish to be taken away and so on, I found, oh, but what is there? It's a question mark. Only after I've seen more of the Alzheimer's Society, after seeing some meetings and webinars where some folks who had been with a diagnosis for 15 and 25 years, and I thought, my God, they're here. They seem to be fully aware. They seem to be fully productive and continuing life as a fulfilling experience. And I thought, I wonder what they do, or what they did, or what they ate, or what interventions they had. And I thought to myself, but perhaps there is some hope for me. If they have been here 15 and 25 years and still going strong, what can I do to follow their footsteps?
Right.
And that gave me the glimmer of hope.
The second question concerns finding support. And although we know that finding guidance and support can help people on the dementia journey, we also know that a lot of people struggle to ask for help. And the question is, and we'll start with you, Arabella, and then Brian and Dawn. Did you find it difficult to reach out for support? What might you say to someone who is hesitant to reach out, who's had the diagnosis and knows they need help, or the family says they do?
You know, Fred, I was not hesitant to reach out, but I had difficulty being a widow on my own. I can only have support for myself, maybe some friends. But at that time, I think I tried the first time around and I didn't get to where I needed to be. And uh, it was not an easy going the first time around. And it was not even the support of my siblings that I could find, because they're all in the Philippines, and when we had bi-monthly Zoom meetings, they'll tell me, Arabella, just don't think about it. Don't mention it to anybody. It's okay. It's just natural aging process. And it's not something we can do anything about. It will just be. And I think one of my friends even told me, heartlessly, I thought at that time, oh, Arabella, you might as well have Alzheimer's. You're so obsessed with it. Well, I was obsessed. I believe that there's only a small window of opportunity when I can do whatever I can to either stop the progression or at least allow myself to live adequately for the rest of my life without going into the full-on dementia symptoms. And I did everything that I could to do that. I was really obsessed. And so I looked at all the research. You see, I'm a researcher, and I looked at what Alzheimer's was showing us. And I also realized that I have other sources of support. You see, I already belong to the Comox Valley Head Injury Society, and that was very helpful because I particularly involved myself more heartily with them. And it's like all of the programs that they had, which was weekly lunches and special dinners and dragon boating and bowling, which I found I couldn't do with my brain. It just burst my brain. So I went away. And stuff like nature walks and yoga and art and everything, I delve into that very much. Plus, finally, when I found out about the Minds in Motion from the Alzheimer's of BC, then I was able to join in the 30-minute program of exercises and then the conversation and active participation afterwards. Sometimes it would be games like Jeopardy, and sometimes it would be, you know, figure out what the answer was. And I saw that as, first of all, wonderful for my body, because I know from my research that exercise is one of the best ways you can keep your brain healthy with a brain-derived neurofactic factors, BDNF. And then the conversations were mostly fun and very interactive. So I thought that that was terrific. And then I also belong to the International Toastmasters Clubs, which is 100 years old now. And boy, did I ever have problems trying to figure out how to do a meeting in Zoom, how to present scripts and shares in Zoom, and how to do all these kinds of things. And I was always falling apart the first few times, but my colleagues were kind to me. They helped me out. And little by little, it felt like, okay, I am navigating this. It is not as scary and as isolating as I thought it would be. There's still another glimmer of hope then. And I was very grateful that I had all of this society activities and community to depend on. And also, one of the biggest things I realized is, oh my God, I used to enjoy speaking, but I can't remember anything. I can't write anything. What am I going to do? But I kept getting asked to speak. And at the beginning, I didn't want to. And then when I was prodded, I thought, well, it could be a lot worse than I used to. And honestly, it's a lot harder, but it still gives me that little bit of ability to do something with my brain. And so I did that no matter how hard it was. And it's getting there. It seems, I think, like Eleanor Roosevelt, she said, courage is having the thing done once before. And each time it got a little bit easier.
Mhm.
And that was how I navigated the support systems that I really needed.
Well, I hear your advice. My takeaway is it sounds like you're advising folks who are perhaps hesitant to reach out to, I know it's to wade right in, and of course, there's that initial, uh, longest walk you'll ever make kind of thing. Biggest step you'll ever make as well, as it often turns out. It's a warm and welcoming community in my view, in my experience. And that's what I'm hearing you try to share with other folks.
Yes, and if one thing doesn't work, try another because I didn't get to finding the support group yet, but I got to the exercise one, which was fun and very good for my brain. So
And
I,
you got
I
here with
persisted.
us today, and we're glad you did.
Yeah, it was tough.
Now, Brian, on the other hand, I don't see Brian as a guy who is hesitant to ask for anything if he needs it or wants it or thinks it's for the greater good. Is that true or not, given your proactive lifestyle?
Well, you know, no, that's fairly like my professional career has been a lot of advocating for other people,
Right.
people who couldn't speak for themselves. And that wasn't a natural skill growing up. But then again, like I began that when I was 21
Yeah.
years old. And so it's natural now. And as soon as we got a diagnosis, it was Penny, she's a psychiatric nurse who also does a lot of advocacy. And now we're finding we had to advocate for ourselves. Finding the resources, even though they weren't plentiful in Prince George, was fairly easy because we knew where to look.
Mm-hmm.
If we didn't know where, if we didn't have our backgrounds, it might have been considerably harder. You know what I mean? Like we knew we knew people who were involved. But so what we did is we immediately contacted the BC Alzheimer's Society after, I think some people out there, once after diagnosis, we spent about 2 weeks binging Netflix and carbs and crying. Like it was a tough blow. But we particularly Penny, accessed the dementia hotline. It gave her a place to say what the hell, right? And she didn't have to burden me with that. And then I began going to monthly support groups. And although Penny and I are side by side on this, let's face it, sometimes the issue is Penny and sometimes the issue is me. And we needed that place to go vent on what the other person, And these support groups were instrumental in allowing us to do that freely and safely.
Yeah.
Because this is a big change, because like we're a team, but And we've also used the educational services provided by, like, these webinars. The last one we did was navigating the holidays. I don't know if anyone saw that, but that was exceptionally helpful for us. And you know, and what Arabella was saying, Penny's the researcher in our family. I lift things she researches. So we were doing, she had me, our diet was changed. I was drinking all concoctions of juices. We were, at times it felt like we were grasping at straws, but we did puzzles. We did change our diet slightly. I thankfully she didn't make me get more exercise, because that would have been tough. But we have jumped right in, as Arabella, as you both said, wading in, right? That's the only way we know how to do things around here, right? So that's what we did. And
Right.
and the next part of the question would be, what advice would I give? I would start my advice by a statement: ignorance is not bliss, right? Joining a support group, accessing the resources, it empowers me with the knowledge that you are not the only one going through life with dementia. These resources will hopefully expose the good and the not so good aspects of this journey. And my support group is thankfully multi-layered, with friends, former professional colleagues, siblings, in-laws, nephews, nieces, my friends in gym, my friends outside the gym. And this is important, that secrecy, to me, as you might tell, I wear my emotions on my sleeve. Secrecy is exhausting. I don't have the time, the energy to be hidden away or purposely hide myself away. This is who I am. This is who I'm going to be for the next decade, 2 decades, 3 decades. And that's what I would say. Get all the information you can and live your life. There's lots of information out there. Find what you want, utilize, and your life will be much more manageable. And it'll be much more manageable for an overriding thing with me is it'll be much more manageable for your family. If you're confident with what this is going on, they'll be more confident. They won't be afraid to ask you the questions, and you won't be afraid to give them the answers, even if they're hard answers. That would be my advice.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Well, I must say, and I believe that Don will back me up on this, that it was my wife that made the first call as well, and we I think all 3 of us guys have had incredible support from family members, this generation and the one behind us, the young adults. But Don, I certainly want to ask, because I know you were looking, what sorts of support you found helpful, and in fact, whether or not you have some of the tactics you used when you were seeking more information would be helpful to those of us or those folks who are listening in with us for first steps, if you will, towards getting the support required.
Certainly, Fred, and yeah, there are some similarities. I'm not sure, actually. My wife didn't, I don't think, report me. I think she's still in denial. But anyway, my wife happens to be a school teacher, a nurse, a Bachelor of Science, and an Anglican priest. So I have it covered physically, mentally, and spiritually. Not by intent, I can assure you. It's been a blessing through my life, and my wife continues to be a tremendous support, and also my youngest son. And in fact, I came to the Yukon and built a house here beside my son purely because I needed a support system as I aged, not particularly for the dementia walk at all. It was before that. I came here 10 years ago, but I was living somewhere else where I didn't have any support. So I came all the way here, built a house, and I physically live beside my son's home. So there's my support system, and I have to now apologize to everybody else in a way, because I didn't look for anybody else. I had no interest in going out and finding support. I wasn't aware there was any. I didn't feel I needed any. But lately, I have been introduced to the society, and in fact, my being here today is, I guess, an experiment in finding that I can get some assistance from the Alzheimer's Association, but that's been new to me. So maybe because I have so significant support from my own family that I'm not in need, and that study. So the men as well in that Zoom group, it wasn't meant for dementia, but it's worked out extremely well that we're now a tight-knit group helping each other, although it has not specifically, it can be finding a new car, it can be finding a new place to live. It's all over the place. We talk about absolutely open, but it's working, and that's working as well for me. I look forward to my weekly meeting with my men's group for 1 hour. So those things all went, I guess I'm saying I'm happy with those, and I haven't really hunted for any support outside. But as things get a little more declining, I'm sure I'm going to have to go to home care and when people can't do transfers, but that's still in the future. So I coming here and doing this webinar, I think has helped me understand that maybe I'm doing something useful, which of course is always a good thing to feel wanted, needed. And the webinar, I think if it helps anyone else, then I have been blessed with this ability. My answer.
That's a good thing. Thank you very, very much for sharing all of that. And what I appreciate about all of the panel members is their unerring, candid honesty about their situations, because in fact, if we're ever going to be able to move ahead, while in fact we may not be moving, or we may be moving in other directions, it'll be because we've got the guts to put things out on the table and see things as they are, not the way we may want them to be. End of sermon. But your wife can use that if she'd like. At any rate, oh, I'm going to get fired for this. At any rate, we're now to our third question, and we'll be back to our original order, which is Arabella, and then to Brian, and then to Dawn. And the third question involves finding a guide. As this year's Alzheimer's Awareness Month slogan states, there is no roadmap for living with dementia, but we can be your guide. Part of the guidance comes from others, just as we've just said, walking the journey alongside us or each other. So, Arabella, tell me, please, if you would, what advice you would give succinctly to someone recently diagnosed.
You know, Fred, I do not give advice. That's not my subject matter expertise. However, I'm a very good researcher. And through my travels on research and talking with people who had the disease or who have them still, I developed some strategies that work for me. So what I'd like to share are those strategies that I use myself. And every one of us has a roadmap depending on our personality, our way into the disease, and whatever circumstances of life we have. And this is what I had with mine. You know, when I was a teenager, I heard this poem that said, go not into the gentle night, but rage against the dying of the light. And you remember it's from Dylan. And in my poetic soul, I said, yeah, why not? Why should I let the light take away the last bit of brilliance that I can get? And so I really must guard against it. And then now in my later years, I'm saying, but that's so silly. Why would I spend the last years of my life raging against whatever brilliance that has left? And so now my mantra is the serenity prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things that I cannot change, the courage to change those things I can, and the wisdom to see the difference.
Amen.
See the difference. Yes, that is wisdom. And remember how I asked the universe to take me out at 35? Good grief, I'm so glad it didn't. Because
What you would have missed.
what I would have missed. And I'm 18 now, and I feel what a pleasure, what a privilege to be living this long and having the gift of life.
Yeah.
With life, there is still hope. And see, what I personally do is I greet the sunrise. And to me, it is always the first gift from the universe. And from that gift, I get on to expect many more gifts that the universe will give me that day. And always, 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 I expect it with gratitude and with faith that the universe has my back, that the universe is helping me out, and that things are happening as perhaps not the way I want sometimes, but as it should. And there is a gift and glory even in the challenges that we get. And so, from that mental perspective of coming from being scared or being angry, I said, wow, this is so neat that all I have to expect these days are gifts from the universe. And so, from my research, it showed me, like you, Brian, I changed much of my diet because now I realize that brain food has a lot of fat and our fat head needs it to be nourished. So that's one of the things I'm doing. I'm eating a lot of good fats in my food, which is so wonderful because I used to do a raw food program. And this is much more palatable, actually. And then the kinds of things that we know is needed, certainly exercise is very important.
Yeah.
So the exercise that Alzheimer's Mind in Motion gives me is only half an hour per week, but I look forward to that because it's so interesting, it's so fun. But I also give myself the gift of qigong practice because as I see the sunrise, I also do my practice in my indoor garden room, and it was like, oh, the the kinks and the joints and the toxins that gathered while I was sleeping is all getting taken away, and I'm doing it with the blessed things in my life, like my plants. I'm a widow and live by myself, and so everything around me that gives me joy is one more thing that I treasure, and one more way to be grateful for the privilege I have of getting to 80 and loving life as is. And of course, there are so many challenges, but it doesn't matter. We can fix it. We can go around it. And so when I think about that, I looked at, I forgot, Robert Browning, who said, come grow old along with me. And I paraphrase that to say, celebrate life with me, for truly the best might still be to be. It is not there within our grasp yet, but every moment that we're here, the gratitude and joy that I feel is immense. And with this, no matter where I am in my life's journey, if I can be an example to the people who might be helped by realizing the diagnosis is not the end of life, but maybe the beginning of a new hope, beginning of a new adventure. And I am checking off my bucket list and saying, okay, I'm having my cataract surgery this Wednesday, January 22nd. And after that, I'm free to roam the world again. And so, bit by bit, I'll be getting there. And definitely, definitely, to the ends of my life, I hope to be able to extract the joy, the juice, the celebration, the gratitude for being
Well, I'm
given.
glad you're getting those beautiful eyes looked at and looked after, and you will see much clearer, I can tell you. And we're grateful for your presence and for the wisdom. And now I want to grab Brian's attention and ask him to chime in on this. If I came to you just having recently been diagnosed, what would your game plan be for me? What would you suggest to me?
Well, a few things and real I'll make it don't let it consume you. Don't let this diagnosis consume you. It full disclosure, I think about it every day. But if you let it consume every aspect of your life, it'll cripple you emotionally, and you will not do so well.
Yeah.
The second, and how I live my life the best, is best way you know how. Live it. Challenge yourself. Constantly challenge yourself. Take risks. And if you fall on your face, you fall on your face. I mean, I've said this many times before, right? The old baseball thing: 300 hitters, an all-star. That's 3 out of 10. That's 7 out of 10 failures. Before diagnosis, did any of us not fail? I don't think so. So continue, take those risks. You'll bounce back up. I guarantee you, I have many times. And but now we're getting into more serious things. Let those around you know how you feel about them. I had a list. The second I probably we walked out of the doctor's office, and Penny goes, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm writing down a list." And I within a week, I had a list of about 20 names, kids, of course, kids, friends, the whole list I mentioned earlier. I love you, I love you, I love you. And it was like, and a couple probably not so much, but I let them know. I let people know I don't, because I thought, I didn't know. I was still of the impression that that the diagnosis, it was going to be super fast, like on a TV show. You get it at the 10-minute mark and you're out of the game by the last commercial. I didn't know how quick this was going to be. So I just decided I'm going to be proactive, let people know how I feel about them, and make things right. Leading, and that leads right into probably the single most serious advice I'd give. The 4 of us have been diagnosed, right? Our families are living with the illness as well. We need to remember that. Everybody who's been diagnosed needs to remember it's not a vacuum. We're not in a bubble. Those people are seeing our deterioration. Those people are seeing the changes in our lives. We need to, for as long as we can, be with them, right? You need, and believe me, I am called on this when appropriate, when necessary. Look, man, you like they were just trying to help, right? I'm getting so tunnel vision on a project I'm working on, and I get not corralled, but put over and said, look, you gotta remember, we're here too. And yes, I know this is a very singular disease, and no one else is going to be going through the same deterioration, but they're seeing it, they're living with it, they're going to be the ones. And you got to create that legacy of love and support, and that's still on us. We can still do that, and we've got to do that.
Well, I mean, I love that. Let the chips fall where they may. attitude,
Oh
bring it
gosh.
on. Bring it on, you
And
know.
that's how I've lived
And-
all my life pre-diagnosis as well. So this is nothing new. And I'm glad I did live my life that way.
Right. Fair ball. Yeah, we owe our families a lot, and I thank whatever powers it may be every day for the outpouring of support I've gotten from my extended family as well. And
Likewise.
I'd be lost without them. Dawn, I come to you and I say, I've just been diagnosed, and I know that you've told me that you had the diagnosis. Where do I start? What give me some advice, man.
Try my best. I would say that we must consider that we have some similarities, but also differences, and each of us must find our own way through this journey with the similarities and the differences. There are some things that we can change and make improvements in our own life to supposedly, statistically, lengthen and make better our life. There are things that we can't change. We can't change our hereditary background. We can't change some things, but we can find strengths and we can improve. There's things like our support system can be improved. And I imagine as we age in this activity, it will continuously change. But anyway, you can always make it better. I think we can work on our diet, and I think all of us could probably work on that. Our mental and physical exercise. Some of those things are very important. And our relationship with others and even our general health. I must say I have other problems beside just dementia. Anyway, to decide that life itself is a gift, and Arabella has certainly said something, and Brian and Fred, but to decide that it's a gift and to be very thankful daily is a tonic. It's a discipline, and I find that it's very important. And I mean, I tell myself that every day is fantastic, and it stops problems like depression, self-pity, or even worse, being cruel to those support people around us, or not being or rejecting their love and attention.
Oh.
So those people are trying to help us walk with our decline. This journey is much harder on them. Our caregivers, my wife and my son, I know this, and I said, whatever caregiver you have. So for me, it's very important, very, very important to take all the help and give all the help and kindness you can back to your own caregivers, because you're going to need them. Amen.
Amen. That's for sure. Well, we're coming to the sort of conclusion of our questions and interaction here, but we're on the cusp of getting into some interaction with those who have been contributing to the chat board. I just have a couple remarks I wanted to make, and then I'll turn it over to Cassandra to usher us out, so to speak. One of the things that benefited me most from getting familiar with the organization was attending the Shaping the Journey course, sort of a series that I personally participated in and really benefited from. It encourages those people who've been diagnosed to reach out and to build well, to arm themselves with information as well as their presence, and in order to make the best of what can be not a great situation. But I certainly want to say that my wife, who again was taught developmentally delayed students for some 30 years, and of course now has the biggest and crankiest living with her, she was the one that made the call. She was the one that made the call. And I should tell you that on the dementia helpline, there are folks who answer the phone and speak South Asian and Chinese. as well as English to get the information that needs getting by those who call in. So there should be no cultural gaps there. We're trying to get the message out to everybody. Even if you're living in a remote part of the province or up in the Yukon there with Don, there are many programs and resources that you can access virtually, and so such as the one we're participating in right now. No one should walk this road alone. This disease is one of the great levelers and one of the great reassurances to me, and it was pounded into me by the folks that I was learning from at the society, is that yeah, you're on your own journey. There's absolutely no need. It's ridiculous to compare yourself to someone who appears healthier than you are or someone who appears further down the line. It's your road, it's your path. If you have allies along the way, brilliant. But you don't have to compare yourself with anybody. Just get the information you need to make the path and the journey as pleasant and profitable in so many ways as you can. At any rate, you can cut your family and loved ones' anxiety and fear in half by picking up the phone, calling the Dementia Heartline. I encourage you to do that. So now it's time to see what our viewers have to say, and also to thank our wonderful support staff and panelists, Kim and Cassandra from the Society, and Mike from who knows where. I have no idea where Mike came from, but he's been steering this ship technically for the last hour or so, and I'm very grateful to him for that, because I am an absolute technical illiterate. At any rate, thank you to those folks, and anything you'd like to say to people listening in today about the value of reaching out or anything else, here we are at your disposal. But I'm going to turn it over to Kim to navigate us through the final canal.
Hi, thank you so much, Fred. And I just want to thank each of you today on behalf of the Alzheimer's Society of BC and everybody tuning in the audience. That was such an incredibly beautiful presentation and conversation. So thank you all. A lot of comments are coming in about how terrific this conversation was, how much people are taking away from it. I've seen people say that I feel hope now. It's a terrific way to start the new year, and many comments like that. So people have found this very helpful and have found resources very helpful that you've shared. So thank you. So there were a couple questions that have come in. And the first one, you spoke a little bit about activities that you bring joy to your life, that you find helpful. One of our audience members is supporting their husband who's living with dementia, who she describes as a workaholic and is now not having much to do. And what maybe suggestions do you have for someone in that situation to get involved? Anything that maybe when you were initially diagnosed and you're kind of having a harder time, what activities kind of brought your spirits up? Anything you could share?
That sounds like it's from my wife.
Brian is
well, for me, the obvious one is the gym, but besides that, and more importantly to the community, we found a couple of agencies that we volunteer for quite often, like our local food banks, and you can work as long as you want, and they will just volunteerism for me has taken the place of work. A bit of a pay cut, but still it's been good. It's got that anyway, volunteerism.
I
Thank you
still
so
help
much.
people fix their computers.
Hey.
Say that again, Don. I didn't.
I still have enough up there to help people often to fix their computer problems they have.
I'll be right over.
That's fabulous.
Yeah, I think we could keep you in business, Don.
Forever and ever. And in my case, I love going out for nature walks. I love just appreciating. Actually, when I could still go to my beach, before my fall, I would go often, but after my fall, I forget, I'm more cautious. But it would seem to me that the sunrise is calling me like a lover waiting. And to me, the incredible manifestations of glory, the splendor of the dawn is just so amazingly fulfilling and filling my heart and my soul. So we are so lucky in British Columbia. We have so many places to go. Like even when we had COVID, it did not take away nature's glory. In fact, it was more glorious then because there wasn't a lot of toxic substances driving through the streets and all that. So I would say nature is such a wonderful thing to behold and experience. And you pair that with walking, which means that you're doing two exercises with one in one time.
Thank you so much for those suggestions, all excellent. A comment I think, Fred, you will appreciate. People are encouraging you all to maintain that sense of humor and how much everyone is enjoying
That's very
that. So thank you. Kind of a second part to that question was for somebody who used to be an avid reader, but is now having difficulty reading and retaining that information, is that something you can relate to, and any suggestions for maybe alternatives if you loved reading?
That was my great disappointment. As long as maybe 10 years ago, when my vision started getting worse, I could hardly read books, and anyway, I lose them. I lose them so often. So what I've decided to do is put the books on my phone, audible books. I have about 300 of them in my phone. So I go walking and I'm listening to these audible books, and some of the documentaries that I watch that I put in there, I cannot remember. So some books and some documentaries I read or listen to 7, 8, 9 times. And I just got from audible.ca saying that in the last year, you clocked around 1,800 hours of listening to,
Wow.
and, and because I forget so often, it's wonderful to repeat those, and I don't even have to bring a book when I'm walking on the parks and on the beach and so on. Just my cell phone. I'd be hard pressed without it.
That is a
Thank
great
you.
idea, Arabella. You just solved one of my biggest problems, one of my biggest challenges. Uh, the the day I read like a demon, I always have, and the day that I can't read or write, and I've been in some groups with folks who are like that, and have tried to describe that loss to me. I'm that'll be the day I'm a basket case. But what you just suggested in terms of the Audible books solves that problem for me in terms of just listening to them. And as I was writing that on a little card here, it struck me that if I ever lose the capacity to write cursively, but this computer and the phone I've got have that, recording mechanism or dictation app, so that as I dictate it, I can see. I use them on my emails now occasionally when it's easier to speak than type them out, so to speak. This is
And,
my biggest takeaway, not only for today, but
and,
for the next 20 years of my life.
and
Thank you.
you're welcome, Fred. And actually, I use my recorder to go into any consultation and specialist office because there's no way I can take it all
I know.
down.
Yeah,
So I have the recording of every single consultation that I have been with neurologists and physiotherapists and all that. So I use my phone very.
that's a great idea. I also my wife and or daughter often come with me just for that reason, because I can't keep the stuff in my head. But to record that, uh, those sessions would be invaluable. So I can't later say, oh, she never said that. And my wife will say, do you want to hear what she said? You know, I could bring a lot of peace to the house here.
And one final note on that for me is I've even had a difficulty with the length of the audiobook. So now I just find articles right there, because my attention span after about 5 minutes, 6 minutes is I have, yeah, I can't remember something that happened 10 minutes ago listening to it. So I keep them short. That's the only fine tune I do.
Thank you, Brett.
Thank you. I have heard others share that short stories or shorter articles can be helpful.
That's great.
It's great. Maya in the chat box has shared that music has been particularly helpful in their household, and they really enjoy listening to music or watching documentaries about musicians and musical groups. So that could be another way for people to find joy and maybe replace reading.
After great deal of persistent, nagging is probably too strong a word, persistent debate about me getting involved with music, which I haven't been for some 55 years. I finally acquiesced to my wife's demands to get out of the house and join the local senior center ukulele group, which has turned in that very first session. I really felt I'm like therapy, but I hadn't been familiar with going in with a chip on my shoulder and having the 25 of us at various levels of capacity bring my mood up for the rest of the day. And then we've started as a group to tour the local, not senior centers, but senior residences, especially at holiday time, but through the summer as well. So I can now say I am with the band, and and it's fun. We're on the road. The road may not be that far, just the region, but it's that's the best ray of sunshine I had, and I wouldn't if my wife Rosie hadn't kicked me in the pants several times a day.
Thank you for sharing that. There's so many programs at the local senior centers that people can get involved in too.
Yes.
One final question that we have from Dave is anything that you could share to encourage someone living with dementia who hasn't disclosed or been open about their diagnosis to maybe friends and family? I don't know if you can relate to, you touched a little bit on it in the webinar about reaching out for support, but anything that you might want to add if someone in your life is having a challenging time talking about their diagnosis with others.
I have a bit of it, not only with difficulty trying to trying to talk about it with others. Also, my friend has a husband who was diagnosed with vascular dementia, and she keeps asking the doctor to test him again because it must be a misdiagnosis, because what legacy does he give to his family? And I thought, oh my God, I mean, this is, I think, the stigma that was incorporated with the diagnosis of dementia. What a pity that it has to be there, and that I have not seen anyone experience anybody that actually came to know about my difficulties and actually derided me or felt badly towards me, you know? It's just that they don't know what to say, maybe. But as I become more open, and I really was never closed, I'm an open book. But as I tell them some of the difficulties, oh, I have that too. Maybe I should get tested, you know. But there's a lot of things that one can do if one knows what the information is. One has to have a baseline information. So the assessment is absolutely necessary. And I don't think that I would have done as much as I could and did if I did not know that I really was technically, cognitively impaired. And it helped.
I'd like to chime in on this only because, and I guess I should have brought it to the table here, but there is a long Greek term, medical term, that in defense of those who have been diagnosed, is a condition where the person who is diagnosed either refuses to accept the diagnosis or even acknowledge that there's anything wrong. And I feel so bad for that person and for whatever caregiver, because how do you deal with that if in fact part of the various chords of dementia involve the not even a natural but this unnatural ability to cut off acceptance that there's anything wrong with you at all. What a burden for the person and the family and the extended community. So in fairness to both those groups, those who care for the diagnosee and the person, the patient himself or herself, I wish I had it. It's a pretty simple thing, but it just sounds like it could be a real pebble in your shoe when you're trying to help somebody.
Those are both excellent points, though there is stigma that is attached to dementia, and so that can prevent some people from feeling comfortable opening up about their diagnosis. And then also on this journey, many people are robbed of their self-awareness and truly don't know that anything has changed or that anything is going on for them, even though those around them are seeing profound changes. So there could be multiple things going on. One of the truly beautiful things that I have witnessed from these lived experience webinars is people commenting after in the evaluation saying that I've gotten the courage to talk to my family or to my friends, or hey, I'd like to share my story after hearing others sharing theirs. And so I do think every time that we have these conversations, we're kind of chipping away at some of that stigma. I'll open the floor for a minute or so if there's any final words that anyone would like to share with our audience today.
I would just like to say that life is an adventure. Stop closing the doors on us. We just keep opening the doors that are there for waiting for us to open them.
Well said.
Beautiful closing words. Thank you.
Yes, thanks again, everyone. So as we come to the end of today's webinar, huge thank you to our moderator, Fred, and our panelists, Arabella, Brian, and Dawn. We are so grateful to all of you for sharing your experiences with so much vulnerability and honesty and humor. And we know this discussion will help other people who are on the dementia journey. And just a reminder that the First Link Dementia Helpline English services are available Monday to Friday, 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. at 1-800-936-6033. We also have helplines for the Chinese and South Asian communities available from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. and the Yukon Dementia Helpline, which is available Monday to Friday, 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. The numbers for those lines are on your screen and available on our website. A link to a recording of today's session will be available on our on-demand webpage within a week, along with a wealth of other dementia education recordings. And finally, if you or someone you know is interested in supporting the Society as a lived experience partner, whom all of our panelists are today, please email us at livedexperience@alzheimerbc.org or fill out the online application by visiting alzbc.org/livedexperience. Thank you again for being here today.